You know, I had the fortune or the privilege really and the honor to work in the White House for about 18 months as part of the National Security Council staff. And I had nothing to do with the Department of Transportation. It was all about foreign affairs. But one of the things I did get a very good appreciation for is how busy and how every single minute of the day matters to the cabinet level officers who serve the President and serve our country. And so for one of them to take the time to come to San Antonio to spend a significant amount of time getting here and then actually participating in this, I just want to make sure nobody walks past that this morning, okay? That's a big deal. And so it's a real honor for me to introduce the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Ray LaHood. He's someone who has served our country in a variety of capacities. He served 14 years in the United States House of Representatives from the 18th District of Illinois. Under his leadership, most recently, he has led a federal government level to shine the light on distracted driving and help form the regulations, the policies that can fundamentally make a difference in our country and our society. He's done it through a variety of imaginative ways, through partnerships with things like the ESPN network, the Better Business Bureau. He has reached out well beyond the departmental team that he has working for him to engage our country and try to make a difference on this. Pilot campaigns, enforcement efforts, public information campaigns. This is a Secretary of Transportation who is working and making a fundamental difference on this problem. So please join me with a warm Texas welcome for the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Kevin, thank you very much. Really appreciate what you're doing and, more importantly, what USAA is doing as a sponsor, one of the sponsors, and also our friends at the Shriners Hospitals for Children and others who are sponsors of this distracted driving meeting. I can't think of another place in the country or the world I'd rather be than right here with all of you. Because we need to focus like a laser beam on the issue of distracted driving, and all of us can play some role in driving down distracted driving down what has, I believe, become an epidemic in our country, and I'll tell you why. I also want to say a special word of thanks to Jennifer Smith, formerly of Texas and now of Chicago, and she's doing a little work for us at the Department of Transportation on distracted driving. She and I have become dear friends over the last 3.5 years that we have worked so hard on distracted driving. The reason that I call distracted driving an epidemic is that is there a person in the room here, raise your hand if you don't have a cell phone or a texting device? That's why it's an epidemic. Only one person raised their hand. The reason that it's an epidemic is that we think we can use these anytime, any place, anywhere. I've seen people use them in church. I've seen people use them at weddings, at funerals. I've seen people use them behind the wheel of big trucks, of buses, of cars. And the one thing that we all know, you can't drive safely if you have one of these up to your ear. Because it's simple. You don't have both hands on the wheel and both eyes on the road, which is what we were all taught. Now there's 3 ways that we can all correct this. All of us. And the first one is very easy. Take personal responsibility that when you get in the car, put this in the glove compartment. It's easy. Just do it. Do you think there's a phone message or a text message that's so important that can't wait till you get to your destination? If you have children or grandchildren, don't be calling them on their cell phone when you know they're behind the wheel of a car. Don't be calling your fellow workers when you think they're driving to or from work, because whatever you're going to talk to them about can wait until they get to where they're going. Personal responsibility. Doesn't involve any laws, Doesn't involve in convincing any governors to sign any laws. It just requires us to do what's right. Just like we've learned over 20 years to buckle up. 20 years ago, before DOT started click it or ticket, before we passed laws, before police started writing tickets, no one buckled up. Today, 86% of the people, 86% of us, the first thing we do when we get in a car, we buckle up. It took us 20 years. Look, we're right at the starting gate on distracted driving. We really are. We have a long, long way to go. When we started this campaign 3.5 years ago, only 18 states had passed laws. We've doubled that in 3.5 years. We have model legislation. I want to make sure your friends here in Texas that serve in the legislature get a copy of that. We might even send a copy to the governor, too. See what he thinks about it. Good laws are important. Good enforcement is important. The idea that you can't enforce the law is not correct. We proved it. Here's how we proved it. We gave a $200,000 grant to Syracuse, New York, and a $200,000 grant to Hartford, Connecticut. They matched it with $100,000, so $300,000 in each community. And what they did with the money is they paid the local police to sit on street corners, and if somebody was on their cell phone driving their car, they pulled them over and they wrote a ticket. And you know what happened in Syracuse and Hartford? Distracted driving went down. It did. So you can enforce it. And look, I know police have a lot of things to do. I know that. But we're prepared at DOT to pay some of these communities to do that so that we can show you can't use the excuse that you can't enforce it. You can enforce it. And we've proved it. So, personal responsibility, good laws, and good enforcement. So we have a few states to go, including the one we're in now, where I know the legislature passed a law, but the governor said it was not enforceable. We've proved it's enforceable in Syracuse and Hartford. Not dissimilar to San Antonio or Austin or Houston or Dallas or any other community in Texas. It can be done. We're working on passing a national law. We know that we will save a lot of lives if we really tackle this problem. Now, I know that you all heard some very compelling stories here this morning, and we thank the families of those that have lost loved ones. We thank those who told their stories. It's very hard to do that. And what I tell people during every talk that I give about this is, don't take it from Ray LaHood. Go on our website, distraction.gov. That is where you will hear the compelling stories, told by family members, mothers and fathers who've lost children, children who've lost parents. Distraction.gov. Write that down. I want you to watch those videos. I want you to watch the testimony. You don't take it from me, take it from them. And once it's as compelling as you've heard here this morning. Now, we all have a responsibility when we get behind the wheel of a car to drive safely. You cannot drive safely when you have a cell phone up to your ear or you're texting and driving. I'm too old to text and drive. I'm not capable of doing it. Some of you are in the same boat, I can tell by looking at you. But we all know how to use a cell phone. And I'm not going to ask for a show of hands. I know the answer to this question. Every one of you in this room have used your cell phone behind the wheel of a car. And every one of you knows you can't drive safely when you're doing that. You can't. And think about the fact that if you're texting and driving, and you're looking at your texting device, for 4 seconds your car goes the length of a football field without looking. That's what causes deaths. That's what causes injuries. That's what causes accidents. So we have to be more responsible. We all have to work on this. In Washington, D.C., on the weekends, I have a car, so I drive myself around, and Washington, D.C. has a very good law. No texting and driving, no cell phone use in driving. Everywhere I go in Washington, and there's a lot of cars on the road in Washington, D.C., when I look over, I almost always see somebody on a cell phone. Always, and you do too. Think about it when you're driving around. Now here's what I do, and I'm not recommending you do this. Sometimes I honk at these people. And sometimes I tell them to put their cell phone down. Now obviously I can't write them a ticket because I'm not authorized to do that. But we really, there needs to be a little peer pressure here. And I know that young people are capable of texting and driving. I know they are, because young people, I have 9 grandchildren. They're all young, 10 and younger. But they have these little devices that they have games on them. So they're almost born with these things in their hand, if you know what I mean. And that's the problem. So we're working very closely with driver education programs, some of which have been suspended in a lot of schools. We want to get young people at an early age to really figure out that this is just not the kind of activity that you can do and drive safely. It's just not. I mentioned the seat belt. Took 20 years to get people, 86% of us, to buckle up. The one thing that young people do know is about buckling up, because they were raised in child safety seats. So they know about buckling up. They know that it's a good thing to do. What they don't know is how dangerous it is to text and drive, or use a cell phone and drive. And the other issue where we've made a big difference, and I like to use it as an illustration, is getting drunk drivers off the road. When I was growing up, I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. It's right in the middle of the state, about 140 miles from Chicago. When I was growing up, if you got stopped for drinking and driving, almost always the police would give you a pat on the back and let you drive your own car home, drive you home, call a cab, but almost never would arrest you. Because of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because of good laws and because of good enforcement, that never happens anymore. Police really do take this seriously. People are now arrested for drunk driving. We have tough laws. We've taken a lot of drunk drivers off the road. .08 has been very helpful. And the reason I use that is because it's going to take time for us to work on this problem. And it's going to take all of us to work on it. Personal responsibility, passing good laws, good enforcement, and it'll take an all-out campaign, like with Click It or Ticket, and like with getting drunk drivers off the road. It just will. But if we keep it up, we will save a lot of lives and save a lot of injuries. So I'm asking for your help. I know you wouldn't be here if you didn't think it was a serious matter. We have partnered. Obviously, USAA is intimately involved in this meeting. State Farm has been a great partner for us. Allstate has been a great partner for us. And what I mean by that, they've gotten on board. They've adopted it as a campaign. They're working very hard on public service messages. I've met with every CEO of every car company because of all the technology they're putting in cars now that distract people while they're driving. And we're making progress. I think the best commercial I've ever seen is the Subaru commercial, and I called the CEO and congratulated him. I ran into him recently, and he said he was so shocked that he had gotten a call from me. But I don't know if you've seen the commercial where the father is peering in the window of a Subaru at a girl that's maybe 10 years old, and over the next 60 seconds she morphs into a 16-year-old beautiful young woman, and he hands her the keys and says, don't use your cell phone, don't text and drive. And that's the message that, as parents, that we really have to persuade young people. And young people need to persuade their peers that when they're driving a car, put that cell phone away, put it in the glove compartment. So we need your help. You've started already today. It's a long journey. We have a long way to go. We're going to continue the drumbeat, continue to make a difference, and we will make a difference. But it is a long road. I see some of our friends here from law enforcement. They're very important in this, and but personal responsibility, good laws, good enforcement, and we'll make a difference. Now, that's pretty much my message, other than saying thank you to all of you. I know you're all busy and you have other things to do. But and this was not supposed to be part of the program, but if any of you have any questions or comments or anything you want to say, what we can do a little bit of that. I never liked these one-way conversations, but let me just see. Does anybody want to say anything or ask any questions? Or yes, sir. Cyclists, you mean? Yeah. Well, our efforts really have been along the lines that I've suggested, trying to, what we did in Syracuse and what we did in Hartford, proving that if you write tickets, it will go down, knowing that law enforcement people have a lot of things to do. Passing good laws. We've doubled the number of states. We have model legislation. Keeping the drumbeat going, trying to find partners around the country. We've gotten a lot of young people involved. Those are and meeting with all of the car companies, all the CEOs to talk to them about all this technology they're putting in cars. That's really where our focus has been. I think that's where our focus needs to be. I really do. We really need to get people thinking you can't drive safely when you have a cell phone up to your ear. And you certainly can't drive safely when you're texting and driving. And persuading states to pass good laws. We're going to continue. Congress has given us some money to continue these grants to cities where they have good laws for enforcement. And we're going to work with driver education programs. We really need to get to young people. We just came out with a study that they're the worst offenders. They really are. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. My name is Keith Parker, and it's good to see you again. I'm the president and CEO of VIA, the local transit authority. And I just wanted to second what you've mentioned regarding enforcement. Prior to 2009, VIA was getting about half dozen or more complaints every day about illegal cell phone usage on our buses. We implemented a zero-tolerance policy, and literally we went from terminating operators at a clip of about once a month until January 2010, where we've had 0 infractions since then. Once we had zero tolerance, got the word out that we weren't messing around on this, that driving while distracted was a big deal. And we've seen our accident rate go down precipitously, and we've seen our complaints from our customers go down to, again, a non-existent level. So we want to second your...
Well, thank you for what you're doing. On the day that we had our first distracted driving meeting in Washington 3.5 years ago, the President signed an executive order saying that no federal employee driving a government car could text and drive, and and then that's been implemented. And then if you have a cell phone or a texting device that's issued by a government agency, you can't use that while you're driving. And we thought that was a good way. And then we've banned truckers, train operators, bus operators, and we appreciate your leadership on that. You've proved it. It made a difference. They're not doing it anymore. Yes, sir. He's going to hand you a mic, which probably is...
Thanks. Hi, my name is Adam Berry. I just wanted to know if you foresee your campaign, I know it's targeting cell phone driving, but will it start to cover other forms of distracted driving? Because there's lots of other things that can distract people, to basically give people the idea that driving is dangerous and they have to have all their focus on driving.
Yeah.
They can't do
Look, the answer is, I'm going to focus like a laser beam on cell phones and texting devices.
Secretary LaHood, first of all, I want to thank you from all of us for being such a rock star relative to distracted driving. You've been amazing in your leadership. My question has to do with the auto industry. We've seen a continued growth in the amount of technology available. GM announced 100 new applications they had a target for in the next few months. They know they have to deal with Google going on for things, Ford obviously with Sync and other things that have been happening. What realistically can we expect to give the auto industry a conscience?
Look, as I said, I met with every CEO for the very reason that you just mentioned. All of the car companies are putting all this technology in cars. It's not just GPS. You can download your Facebook, you can call a restaurant and make a reservation, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And what I said to them is, I want you to take some personal responsibility and figure out how you can be helpful here. And that's the reason I called the CEO of Subaru. I think for them, they spend an enormous amount of money on advertising. And to focus that on distracted driving is pretty extraordinary. So we've kind of left it in their hands. We've also come out with some voluntary guidelines. And we're also doing a study on the cognitive influence of Bluetooth sync. And those studies will be out later this year. Before I can go to a car company and say, hey, we think that sync and some of these other voice activated and technologies are a problem, we need good data. And we're doing that now. We're doing some very good studies. Because we don't know if Bluetooth is the kind of distraction that this is, or that if a voice activated. But some of our voluntary guidelines we've put out we think are good, but again, they're voluntary. So we're moving ahead a little bit on that. Where I think we can really make progress is at meetings like this, where you hear the testimony and the heartbreaking stories, and you get the good statistics, and you really get a good understanding of what the issue is. The big issue is this right here, and our bad habits. That's what it is. Anybody else? All right, we need your help on this. I don't want you walking out of here thinking just because you came to one meeting, you've done your part. We all need to do more. We need to lecture young people. We need to make sure we're not calling people when we know they're behind the wheel of a car. We need to take personal responsibility. Put these in. Next time you get in your car when you leave here today, put this in the glove compartment. That's kind of like the first step of a 10-step process. You know where I'm going with this, right? All right? And look, on the political side of things, you know what to do. I don't need to tell you what to do. We need good laws. We simply do. We're going to continue to do our part from our perch at DOT. But we need your help. And you all know what to do. You're great to spend all of this time. If you get involved in this, you're going to save lives and save injuries. What a great contribution. Take care. Thanks.